All right, welcome. This is the Whitman Finance Committee meeting. Today is Monday, May 10th, 2021. It's 7 o'clock. We're broadcasting from the Whitman Hanson Community Access platform. The agenda was emailed out in advance, and we do have guests here with us tonight. We have Mary Beth Carter, Treasurer Collector. We have Justin Evans, Selectman. Thank you for attending. And of course, we have Lincoln Heineman, and I don't know that Ken did not say he wasn't coming. So
Ken actually informed me he'd be slightly late, but I think he said 7:15 he'll be here.
Excellent. All right. So the agenda emailed in advance. Meeting minutes are from the last meeting are not going to be available for tonight's meeting. Reserve fund stands at $37,321.20. The public forum is continued to be suspended due to the COVID-19 limitations. Under new business, we are going to go right into a budget manager meeting with the treasurer collector. New business, we do have the budget recommendations, the warrant, the venue for the annual town meeting, subcommittee reports, and our placeholders for Whitman Hanson Regional School District. And so under other business, we have typically a report or a wrap up from the town administrator and the accountant. So the upcoming meetings, we have only two left. We have May 17th and May 24th. We do have May 31st. However, we'll need to conduct all of our business and be completed for the warrant to be printed with our recommendations prior to that date. So if we do decide that we need to meet on that date, we'll obviously post for that. And then annual town meeting, I have corrected it on the agenda as June 2nd and a 5:30 post time right now at the Whitman Hanson Regional High School. And right now, what we'll do is, if the committee is amenable, we'll go right into the meeting to discuss salary with the treasurer collector, Mary Beth Carter. So Mary Beth, if you want to give an overview of your request to submit an adjustment to your budget, and we'll certainly have questions if the committee has any for you. Again, Justin Evans here, Board of Selectmen representative, to also weigh in as he sees fit. So with that, we'll let you start. You're muted.
How's that?
Thank you.
There we go. Thank you very much. So you received my email concerning my request to increase my budget. And I am requesting an increase in my salary on the salaries treasurer line on page 11 of the fiscal year 22 budget in the SoftWrite document to $100,000 plus the certification stipend that I usually receive each year, making it a total of $102,000. And there were a few reasons why I decided to request this increase this year. First, we all know the Collins study was done a few years ago, and it does show that my position is underfunded for a 5-day department head with my duties and responsibilities. And secondly, since I outsourced payroll this fiscal year, the town is realizing savings, both in the reduction of the salary line, a savings of $12,445 or 36.81%, which does pretty much cover the cost of the CDS outsourcing. And the town is also realizing a savings through the cancellation of the Springbrook payroll maintenance contract. And that savings is in the amount of $15,071.23 for fiscal year 2022. In conversations with Josh McNeil, Director of Technology, he feels that the outsourcing of payroll should be paid from the technology line. Therefore, it makes sense for him to keep the Springbrook savings in his expense line, which means that the $10,000 I originally budgeted in my expense line will no longer be needed for outsourcing payroll. So I just want to, put that out there. Also, I did have a conversation with Lincoln after our recent department head meeting and asked if there were unrealized savings in the budget due to this recent development with the Springbrook contract. I asked him if he would support an increase in my salary line to address some of the inequity in my salary. Lincoln stated that he would support my request, which he did, and the Board of Selectmen unanimously voted to support my salary increase as well. Thank you, Lincoln. So my salary line for fiscal 22, well, if I just start with 2021, it was voted at $93,225 under my salary fiscal 2021 budget amount. I originally requested $95,090, which is a 2% increase. And that's before this came up with the savings in the software contract. So I wanted to adjust what I had put in for, the 95,090, up to 100,000. This year, Lincoln has decided to combine, because I'm an elected official and Don Varley is an elected official, our salary lines into one figure. So when I was looking at information tonight, I see that it shows a percentage change on this line if you're including the $2,000 in the salary line of 9.41%. However, I don't think that's 100%, comparing apples to apples, because if we're including the $2,000 in my salary line, that increase doesn't take into account, of course, the savings of zeroing out the $2,000 line. So I would take the $93,225 budgeted in fiscal 2021. And if we add the 2,000 to that, considering, the same process, combining it, I showed the increase would be about 7.1% in the budget. So the Collins study was really the main reason. And I think you all have the classification study. And on page 4, under the recommended classification structure, under proposed grade A, there are 4 employees who are 5-day employees. And I'm only looking at 5-day employees for department heads that fall into the proposed grade A category. It is the DPW superintendent, the water sewer superintendent, the treasurer collector, and the director of technology. Now, just to compare some information, the DPW superintendent on the fiscal 22 budget is in the budget recommended for $103,386. The water sewer superintendent is down for $103,437. I'm in total with my stipend at $102,000, and the director of technology is budgeted for $132,745. Now, looking further, even at the years that we've been department heads, the DPW superintendent, which is Bruce Martin, has been a department head since 2011. Dennis Smith, water sewer superintendent, has been a department head since 2018. I've been a department head. I started as a temporary department head in 2005 and then was voted in to finish out a term in 2006 and became that as the town collector. And then 2009, the treasurer. And then the director of technology was a department head when he was hired in the year 2012. So I've even been the department head even a little bit longer than some others. Well, some of those employees have been with the town many more years or have worked for the schools for many years, just looking at the years as a department head. And I just want to say that whether or not you vote my salary increase for fiscal 2022, in the amount of 102,000, I do not feel that these other 5-day department heads listed in the Collins study in grade A are overpaid. I don't question their salaries because I know the duties and responsibilities they each have, the time and effort they put into their jobs each day, and the excellent job that they do for the town. You have any questions?
Okay, thank you, Mary Beth, for that presentation. So does anybody on the committee have any questions for Mary Beth? Kathleen?
I just want to say, Mary Beth, that I remember in your presentation back when you had changes in personnel and you saw a way to save the town money by outsourcing. You weren't going to have to fire anybody or reduce the number of employees, which is the right way to do it when an opportunity presents itself to reduce your staffing if it's possible. So I was impressed with the way that you were proactive in that instance to begin with. So I completely concur with your presentation tonight. I think you do a terrific job. You're as professional as we could hope for, and I appreciate you taking the time to explain in detail the reason for your request.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, Justin, would you like to chime in anything on behalf of the Board of Selectmen? I know that they did vote on this at your last meeting, that's correct?
Yeah, we did. I think Mary Beth did a great job summarizing all the reasons that she's requesting this. And yeah, the board considered that all last Tuesday and voted unanimously to support the change in this line.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Anybody else, Lincoln, anything to add? I know you had discussions with Mary Beth concerning this issue.
No, I don't think so. I think Mary Beth and Justin did an excellent job summarizing it. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Excellent. Well, if there are no further business questions related to this line item for our agenda, I would suggest that tonight we, as a board, we will be voting recommendations and most likely starting with the warrant, but we will probably have time to start voting the specific line items in the detail, which include the salary line for the treasurer collector. So I can't say that we'll be voting that tonight, but there is a good possibility that we will. And I'd like to echo the sentiments of Kathleen and Justin and Lincoln to say that I think you do an exemplary job, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with you, and thank you for attending our meeting to present your case for your budget.
Thank you for allowing me to present tonight.
Okay. All right, then you are certainly free to get back to your job.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Justin, you're
Good night.
welcome to stick around, or you can tune out too. It's totally up to you.
All right, thanks.
Okay. All right. So looking at our agenda, so we do, Lincoln did provide the information that we requested for an updated budget and warrant. I might just suggest to the committee that we start with the warrant and then go back to the question line items in the detail. There are also some changes that were made prior to the selectmen's meeting that the selectmen did vote on. And we may have to reconsider lines that were voted last meeting as changes were made to accepted line items. So if it's the board's will, I would suggest if we could put a copy of the warrant up, we could start right in with the recommendations for the warrant articles. Does anybody want to go in a different direction? So I think we do have enough, have enough time before town meeting to act on all of the recommendations that are before us. But I think if we make it through the warrant, we'll have a good chunk of it done. So John or Lincoln, could you help us with a shared
Sure.
document?
I can get it up just a minute here.
So while Lincoln's working on that, so there are likely warrant articles that don't need a recommendation for the Finance Committee. If somebody feels, that they do or they don't, certainly, make it known why you feel that way, I guess. But we're going to start off with Article 1 is annual town election, and then Article 2, obviously, we're going to hold off on that. We'll probably start off with the prior year expenditures, starting with Article P1.
Not
So
sure
this
that's
is
the
not-
one you want more.
This isn't
Lincoln.
the right document.
Lincoln, you're on our MVP discussion from earlier today.
Oh, am I? Sorry.
It
Hold
looks,
on. Let
it
me
looks
try that
really
again.
interesting.
Yeah, you want me to do it, Lincoln?
It was fascinating. Yeah, I'm having some trouble screen sharing. So if you have it handy, John, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay,
Second.
thank you, John.
Hold on. let
So
me get
yeah,
my-
P1, I guess would be the first warrant article that would need a recommendation from the Finance Committee. So P1 is a prior year expense. See if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money or transfer from available funds or transfer from other accounts. And I'm reading from the old copy, so I'm gonna read from the new copy. See if the town will vote to appropriate $6,999.38 from free cash to pay such accounts as may be presented to the town for which an appropriation does not exist, or take any other action relative thereto. So you can see these outstanding bills. This is proposed by the town administrator and the town accountant. And I'll entertain a motion for Article P1.
Well, specifically Article P1,
Yes,
I'll move that we accept that, recommend that.
okay. There's a motion to recommend Article P1. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. So I'm gonna do a roll call vote. I guess that's the only way I'm gonna be able to do it, and it might take me a minute because I don't have everybody in the screen. John Noon,
Yes,
John Galvin,
Yes,
Ralph,
Yes,
Kathleen,
Yes,
Al,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
we got Dave.
Dave, I'm sorry. I gotta
Yes.
click one more time. Sorry, Dave. Okay, so Samantha, are you tallying the votes for us?
Yes,
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll move to Article P2. Fire Department supplemental appropriation. See if the town will vote to appropriate $10,244 to fire department expense from free cash or take any other action relative thereto proposed by the fire chief. Do you have a motion?
so moved.
Okay, a motion from John. Noon. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Chuck will
Okay,
second.
Thank you, Chuck. Okay, discussion.
Kathleen has a question.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
Do we have any explanation for this request?
Yes. So what this is this represents the town's portion of a generator. So the town received a grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency Administration to purchase a new generator, which was needed at the fire department. The town had a 25% match, and that's what this represents.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Lincoln. Further discussion on Article P2. Okay, seeing none, I will move to roll call. Al,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes,
Ralph,
yes,
Dave, Dave, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm having trouble unmuting. Yes,
Okay, thank you. Kathleen,
Yes,
Al,
You already asked me. Yes.
sorry. Chuck, did I ask you?
No, but I'll vote yes.
All right, I vote yes as well. Sorry, it's hard for me to toggle all the pictures. Okay, and so Samantha, if you don't get the vote, just let me know and we'll take it again. So, all right, moving on to Article P3. Hog Memorial Drive water main replacement. See if the town will vote to appropriate from available water sewer retained earnings and transfer an additional $35,000 to the annual town meeting, Article 30 of the May 6th and 7th, 2013 town meeting to fund the completion of Hog Memorial Drive water main replacement project or take any other action relative thereto. This is proposed by Public Works Commission. And I'll entertain a motion.
Kathleen moves it.
second,
Okay, seconded by John Noon. Discussion.
Yeah, I have a question. Lincoln, wasn't this, well, I don't know if you were around when we were going to have the special town meeting prior. There was discussion, I believe Dennis discussed it in our meeting, but maybe it was Dave's meeting, that they wanted to, this is to finish off a section of Hog Memorial. And there was money from an existing project that was left over that he wanted to use to do it. And I thought that all the money was going to come from there, but it looks like there's money coming. How much total money is getting appropriated here? Is it just 35,000? And is it all coming from that one town meeting article, or is some of it coming from water and retained earnings as well?
Yes, so $35,000 would be from water sewer retained earnings. I haven't heard discussion from Dennis or anyone else concerning a possible addition, excess monies in any other account to pay for that. It's the first time I've heard that.
Well, I mean,
So,
just the way it reads, because it mentions the Article 30 of the 2013 town meeting.
right, so those are monies that had already been appropriated, and I can find out, I'm sorry, I don't know, I don't have right in front of me what that original amount was, but I'll find it during the meeting here. So this is an additional amount in addition to that amount that was appropriated in May of 2013, an additional $35,000 from water sewer retained earnings for the project because there are insufficient funds from that 2013 vote to finish the project. Does that make sense?
It actually is, the way it's worded, it seems
Yeah.
like the total dollar amount is in excess of 35,000.
It-
And that the article is incomplete without the total dollar figure.
That's what
No,
I'm confused
so,
over.
So the original amount, which was significantly more than 35,000, was appropriated back in 2013. That amount is already appropriated. That amount is, if not yet, will very soon be fully expended on the project. In order to finish the project, an additional $35,000 is needed. So while the article could reference the original amount that was appropriated, it's not necessary. And I didn't reference it in order to not confuse things for exactly this reason. But maybe that wasn't successful. But
Yes.
the point is that this is an additional $35,000 to the amount that was appropriated back in 2013. And the $35,000 is needed to finish the project. The original amount appropriated was insufficient. So
Can I suggest if the sentence was restructured to say, to see if the town will vote to appropriate from available water sewer retained earnings, and not by transferring an additional, if you simply wrote.
I know
by-
Al had a question and I have a follow-up, but Al, if you want to go
yeah, I mean,
first.
so town council reviewed this and they agreed that that this language achieves the goal here.
Okay,
So I do think, right, so what this would do would be, like I said, would be to appropriate the monies from retained earnings and transfer those funds to that original purpose back in 2013 to fund the completion of that water main. So just to be clear, I mean, town council believes that this language achieves the goal. So, it certainly could be amended on town meeting floor. I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, if the goal is achieved according to town council with this language.
Al, you had a question or a comment?
No, just a comment, maybe a question too. It's, we don't know what it was though, do we, in 2013, what the amount we appropriated for this back in 2013, do we?
I'm going to find it during this meeting.
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
know off the top of my
Oh,
head.
that's no problem. That's okay.
So while you're finding it, Lincoln, my
Yeah.
question is that I thought originally when Dennis was discussing this, that he was transferring money from a different project altogether that was left over
Right.
to be used to finish the Hog Memorial part of it. So it wasn't, so are we sure that Article 30 of that was for the Hog Memorial? Or I want to say it was like Bird Ave or some other road that he had
So-
money left over that he was trying to transfer in.
Yeah, so I am 100% sure that article from 2013 in the, DPW's estimation is insufficient to finish that project.
Oh.
As far as using excess monies that may have been identified in another article, that's the first I'm hearing about it.
Okay, so he
I-
changed it then.
I'm
Okay,
not, yeah, I mean, I'm not discounting that may have been said back then,
okay.
but,
I guess I was just confused by the way it was worded and thinking back on what he had talked about before on how he was going to do to finish this. So I'll just retract my concerns and I'm willing to move forward.
but I mean, to be clear, in case that was the case, that there were more funds than were needed in another project, they will definitely be returned to, retained earnings for use on a future project, right?
Okay.
I mean, they're not going to sit out there forever. And that article will be closed out if there are more funds needed on a different non-Hog Memorial Drive project. So it's, in that respect, it's all coming from the same place, retained earnings, and going back there if it's not needed.
Cool.
You get my point?
Yeah, I do.
So, yeah.
Ron, you're correct. They originally presented this to transfer monies from a dormant job that no longer needed any additional money, but had monies left over. That was their intent, was to just to transfer it from another job when they presented it to the Capitals Committee. The Capitals Committee was like, geez, that doesn't seem right. Why don't you just close out that job and grab the 35,000 from water retained earnings? So it's a clean way of the transfer, is a clean way of transferring the money to this project.
So Dave, is your opinion that the wording that is presented in this warrant article achieves that?
Yeah, that makes sense. The other wording said that the other wording had even more language in the sense that they wanted to transfer from an open article. So that language is now removed. And it also says is that they want 35,000 from water and retained earnings to finish up a job that was originally approved from town meeting in 2013.
Okay.
Justin just posted the previous proposal in the chat window if everybody wants to open that up and look at it. And it's a totally different thing. So thank you, Justin. That straightens it out for me.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any further questions regarding Article P3? All right. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Think we
Kathleen
already
will
had
move.
one, didn't
Second,
Okay, we have a motion to recommend and seconded. Further discussion? Okay, seeing none. Kathleen,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
John, Galvin,
we? Yes.
John Noon,
yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Okay. And I vote yes as well. Okay. All right, moving on to Article P4, postage metering contract. See if the town will vote to authorize the town administrator to execute a contract of up to 6 years for postage metering services or take any other action relative thereto. So this is one of those ones that's on the fringe, I guess, of a finance committee recommendation. Lincoln, what is your thought?
Yeah, I mean, I can explain, it's up to the finance committee to determine if it has there is a financial impact, but it's up to you whether or not you want to take a stand on it. But what this is we have a Pitney Bowes machine at Town Hall through which we do all of our postage metering. And there are significant, I would say, in the context of the entire budget, not super significant, but every dollar counts, every cent counts. But over the course of time, there'd be $4,500 in savings if we had a 5-year contract rather than a 3-year contract to renew, get a new machine, which is required since they're not supporting the old machine anymore and move forward with the new machine. The state law does not allow a contract of more than 3 years without town meeting's approval. And so that is why it's on the town meeting warrant. Again, it would be $4,500 over the life of the contract, over the life of those 5 years, if we were able to lock in a lower rate. So this is a every penny counts kind of thing. So.
Excellent. Well, based on that explanation, I would say that a recommendation from Finance Committee would be warranted. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for Article P4.
Kathleen moves.
I'll
Second,
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. John Noon,
yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
and Dave?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, moving on to the next article, page 3 of the warrant. So Article 1 is to accept Chapter 90 road grant monies. See if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator to accept such sums of money as may be distributed to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts through Chapter 90 Highway Grant Program, so-called. Funds to be expended by the Department of Public Works in accordance with the guidelines and requirements of the Massachusetts Highway Department, or take any other action relative thereto. It is proposed by the town administrator. Do we have a motion?
Kathleen moves it.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Do we know how much
Yeah,
Chapter 90 money is?
Yeah,
So
normally it is listed there, what we have.
yeah, I would recommend that we do not. So Chapter 90 is a reimbursement program. So we spend it and then we, ask for reimbursement from the state. We don't necessarily know what that dollar amount's going to be right now. I know sometimes in the past, if a dollar amount was there, it would have been last year's number. So it wouldn't necessarily capture it all. Eventually those funds would be captured, but I think for the ease of accounting, it's easier, simpler, and in my mind, totally appropriate to not have the exact dollar amount in order to not possibly not capture the entire amount that we would receive this year.
Okay. Further questions on Article 1? All right. Do we have a motion?
Yes.
And we have a second?
Yes.
Okay, no further discussion. We'll go to John Noon,
yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Okay, so Article 2, I would suggest we just move past Article 2. I would say that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lincoln, once we vote the specific detail sheet, the calculations then would just transfer to recommendations on the Article 2 for the warrant. Is that your?
That is correct. That's how I would represent it. Yes.
Okay, all right. So we're gonna just pass over Article 2 for now and move to Article 3, revolving fund limits. See if the town will vote to authorize spending limits for fiscal year 2022 for the following revolving accounts approved under the town's bylaws, or take any other action relative thereto. So it listed the revolving account and the spending limits there on the following page. This is proposed by the town administrator. I'll entertain a motion.
Kathleen makes the motion.
Second,
Okay, discussion. Anybody have any discussion on this Article 3? Seeing none, I will move to a roll call. John Noon,
yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay. Article 4. Appropriate excess levy to stabilization fund. So this is an article that really has to wait till the end of the meeting. Is that correct, Lincoln?
No, it wouldn't. So what this would do is, so I think, you know, everyone on the committee knows what the levy is, right? But briefly, the levy is the amount that was taxed last year on the entirety of real and personal property, both commercial and residential and industrial in town. In addition, the levy ceiling includes a 2.5% increase across, not to each individual taxpayer, but across the entirety of the taxes charged to taxpayers in the town. Includes any new growth that is estimated for the upcoming fiscal year 2022, and includes any excluded debt, for example, from the high school, Whitman Hanson High School, and the remaining excluded debt that we have from there. That entire amount is determined and then appropriately distributed in terms of taxes to the entirety of the personal property and real estate taxes paid by all taxpayers in town. The difference between what the excess levy is the difference between what is needed in Article 2 to fund the operations of the town and the maximum ceiling that may be taxed according to that formula that I just laid out. And so it is true, right, in the past, and I think many members, if not all members of this committee, knows that at times in the past, that excess levy was left on the table, was not taxed. In this instance, what this article would achieve is that amount would automatically go to the stabilization fund for future use. Now, to be clear, based on our calculations, Ken and mine, the excess levy would be very minimal because the amounts that are projected to be taxed in fiscal year 2022 are just sufficient, you know, for the services for what's being proposed to be appropriated in Article 2. But to the extent that there's a few $1,000s and to set the standard that we want to build up our stabilization fund and not leave possible taxation on the table that would otherwise be there that we would be foregoing in taxes. What this article would do is would be to capture that in this year minimal amount and make sure it goes to the stabilization fund to, you know, the town's rainy day fund for future use when needed. So happy to take any questions about it, and hopefully that was pretty clear.
Okay, yep. So this is the first time that this article has been on the warrant. Is that correct, Lincoln?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that I've done in the past, and I think it's a best practice, and that's why it was recommended to be on the warrant this year, and the Board of Selectmen chose to put it on.
Okay, does anybody have any further questions about the Article 4?
Just a quick one. Would that every year, will that have to be an article that gets put on the warrant, Lincoln?
If we were to achieve this, yes, we'd have to have it on the warrant every year, yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, further questions? I will entertain a motion to recommend Article 4.
Kathleen moves Article 4.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, John New.
yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
John Galvin?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Ralph?
yes,
Dave?
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. Okay, Article 5, Sewer Force Main Project. To see if the town will vote to appropriate $14,471,950 or any other amount to pay the cost of sewer main replacement from the Auburn Street Pump Station to a gravity sewer terminus manhole located in the city of Brockton, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, to determine whether this amount shall be raised by borrowing or otherwise provided to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into any and all agreements with other municipalities and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that are necessary or convenient to complete this project, or to take any other action relative thereto. And this is proposed by the Public Works Commission. Entertain a motion first.
So moved.
I'll second
Okay.
it for the purpose
We
of
have a motion
discussion.
and a second. Discussion.
Dave, can I ask you a question? Has this been considered by the capital committee, the soon to be named capital committee?
Yes, actually, the day that the second time that they presented on this, I invited everybody from this committee to join in on the Zoom meeting, and nobody from this committee took me up on that offer.
And so is this recommended by the capital committee? Did you
Yeah.
take a vote?
All capital articles have been recommended unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have the recommendation of the Capital Committee and further discussion from the Finance Committee.
John,
All right.
go ahead. John Noon, go. He can't see you.
Go ahead, John.
This is a little bit off topic, but I would like to see in the future, this committee utilize some of the tools that have been, provided. I guess it was in the Collins report, in that we should be starting to rate at a much earlier time than this the projects that are coming forward, since the Capital Committee is looking at just the importance of doing the job, or the project, or buying the truck, or whatever it might happen to be, but is not getting involved in the financing part of it. I think we as a committee need to start looking at some of these projects, not after the Capital Committee votes, and not at a point like this, but at a much earlier stage, to get a sense of whether these projects, if we line them all up, we have a priority set for them. And if the Capital Committee thinks that they warrant our attention, all well and good. But this year we have the luxury of being able to fund these projects. I doubt very much in future years that will be the case. I know it's a little bit off topic, but I think it's important that we take a look at these projects a lot earlier than at this point, within a month before town meeting.
John, your point is well taken. I think from a ticking time bomb perspective, this is probably at the top of the list. I think we've been looking at this project for quite some time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, just for the Capital Committee's evaluation of projects, they do prioritize the projects based on the availability of funds as well. I mean, that's, your recommendations would be based on the amount of money that the town has available to commit to capital project.
No, this year we did not do that. We did not prioritize in terms of the availability of funds. But yeah, I would like to echo Rick's sentiment that, John, you're spot on in your statement. The Capital Committee, in its current form, was established in 2015. In 2015, the responsibilities included development of a capital plan. For whatever reason, that hadn't been considered until last year when I became chairman. And one of our goals is to get that up and running by next year. Because you're right, we have those discussions in the Capital Committee all the time, is how do we prioritize these? Why aren't we looking at the funds? In the same, all those concerns that you brought up, John. And so it is our goal to follow the responsibilities outlined in the article that established this committee to a T. And one of those is to have capital articles delivered to our committee for consideration in October. So everybody that's been involved in this committee, knows that's a stark difference from the way we do it now. And secondly is, again, development of that capital plan. I think once we get past town meeting, those discussions are going to ramp up again in our committee, and we're hoping to have a working format for, I would think by, sometime after October when we get those first round of capital requests in.
Okay,
Thank-
thank you. Yep, thank you, Dave. Thank you, John, for your question and your good point.
Rick, I have a question.
Go ahead, John.
So the 14,471,950, is that the actual cost that we are given as an estimate?
No, well, yeah, that's an estimate. So that this project, once, if funds are approved, it'll go out to bid.
Okay.
And-
So my question is, it's my understanding that the Board of Commissioners have agreed to use some of their retained earnings for this. So how is that worked into this article, that the amount, the actual amount that the will come from retained earnings versus how much will actually get bonded?
Yeah, well, all of the funding will come from retained earnings, whether or not that's anything that's existing in there now or.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, I know the payment of the bond will be paid for by retained earnings. My question is, when the estimate comes in, how much of the estimate is going to get bonded and how much of the down payment will come from retained earnings? And I think maybe Lincoln might have that answer.
But
Yeah,
I wanted to be clear, like before you go, I just want to be clear. You said some of the monies, John. I'm saying all the monies are going to be coming from water and retained earnings in one form or another. Go ahead, Lincoln.
so, right, so the 1 point, so I want to be clear on this because I think the amount that will be in the motion, right? So not in the article, but in the motion will delineate the $1.5 million directly from retained earnings. Now, to be clear, the Public Works Commissioners took a vote to directly appropriate, to have in the motion a direct appropriation of $1.5 million of existing $4.14 million retained earnings directly towards the project. And then with this was with the caveat that this was before we recently, in the last few weeks, learned that we will be eligible for what's called the state revolving fund, for a low interest loan with possibly some principal forgiveness. So it is possible. So the Board of the Public Works Commissioners have a meeting tomorrow night, and it is possible that they would want to revisit that, that desire to directly use $1.5 million in retained earnings towards the project. I will certainly, but just to finish that thought, I will certainly continue to advocate for the use directly of 1.5 million of our $4.14 million in retained earnings to reduce the project. Therefore, the borrowing for the project would be just under $13 million. So $12,971,950 in
Okay.
borrowing for that project. But just to sort of touch on one other point, it's definitely sort of inside baseball, but the amounts that would be paid towards the debt will not necessarily come from retained earnings directly, because the retained earnings is like free cash, and it is like, it is our savings account. It is the enterprise funds savings account. So to the extent that the regular operating budget, the revenues received in that fiscal year, support the debt payments that are needed in future fiscal years, 2-3 years out from now, when the long-term debt is borrowed for this project, to the extent that the regular operating revenue that comes in can support those, that is what I will advocate for certainly. So it's sort of an inside baseball accounting kind of thing, but it to the extent that the ongoing revenue supports it, it would not necessarily the entirety of it be coming from our savings account, the retained earnings. So hopefully that's clearer.
Kathleen,
So this is where the discussion about increasing the sewer rates originated. Down the line, this is where the sewer rate it will be.
Right. So the commissioners have already taken a vote to raise the sewer rates on the October bill from $4.50 per 100 cubic feet to $6 per 100 cubic feet. And so that said, there will not, with the approval of the state revolving fund, with the approval of our participation in that low interest loan, the short-term borrowing now is interest-free. So we will not have any debt payments on the short-term borrowing for this project as it gets going. The only time we will have interest payments is on the long-term borrowing through the state revolving fund once the project is complete and that long-term borrowing is complete.
okay, excellent questions. In regarding that, I think the middle of the paragraph kind of allows the discussion that we just had about using enterprise funds or retained earnings to partially fund the project by putting in the term otherwise provided. I think that really spells out what the mechanism for funding the project. I think the project itself, the importance of this project can't be understated. So, but again, yeah, I think we definitely have a vested interest on knowing how the project will be funded. So does anybody have any other questions or comments related to
I have a quick-
Article 5? Go ahead.
So Lincoln, as long as there are funds available in water and retained earnings, is it your intention that all funds for the borrowing would be used from water and retained earnings?
So no, not necessarily. So I want to kind of clarify a piece about retained earnings. I think this will be helpful. So the retained earnings is the enterprise funds equivalent of free cash. So it is the amounts remaining at the end of each fiscal year by which monies, by which revenues in that fiscal year exceeded the operating expenses as appropriated by town meeting. And that's how the town has increased its retained earnings amount up to 4.14 million through several years, throughout many years of revenues, actual revenues from water and sewer users exceeding the amount that was appropriated at town meeting to be spent on the operations. So now with the rates, we already know that the rates are going to be going up by a third per the Board of Public Works, per the Public Works Commissioner's vote. And so we know for sure that revenue, and we further know that we will not have any through the approval of the state revolving fund. We further know that for at least a year, and depending on how long the project takes, we will not have any costs related to the debt for this project. So we know that in fiscal year 2022, there will be more revenue than what the expenses are. And at the close of the fiscal year, when retained earnings are certified a year and a half from now, right? They'll be certified during 2022, but further at a year and a half from now, when they're certified in fiscal year 2023, and the full impact of this rate increase is seen for an entire year in fiscal year 2022, our retained earnings, will go up even more. But when the eventual debt is taken, first we would want we would want the debt payments to come from the operating budget and the expected revenue in that fiscal year. And then, and only then, if rates are insufficient to cover those debt payments, will we want to go into our savings account, our retained earnings. Does that help clarify it a little bit?
Can I paraphrase and tell me if I'm right or wrong? So because the structured debt doesn't require payment immediately, and the fact that the rates are going up, so allows for more retained earnings to come in, we're talking about a few years. Retained earnings are going to it's the town's intent to take those the anticipated yearly, or maybe a year's worth of the loan, take that from water retained earnings, put it into stabilization. So when the next year, when the loan kicks in, it goes from, so essentially it's going from water retained earnings, stabilization to payment of the debt.
Yeah, so, well, a little bit simpler than that, in that my intention would be to advocate for, I mean, so it only becomes retained earnings when it's excess revenue at the end of the year, right? So let's say, just for the sake of argument, that the long-term borrowing begins in fiscal year 2023. And that is the first year in which we have interest payments, that's the first year that there's long-term debt on this project, and therefore, the first year that there's some interest payments on it. At that point, we would have a year's worth of experience to see what the rate increase actually created in terms of excess revenue. We know there's going to be some excess revenue, but will the increased rates produce some conservation efforts on the part of some ratepayers, and therefore the amount of water and sewage usage goes down a little? Possibly, right? But we'll have a full year to see what actually happened with revenue from that full year's worth. But hopefully there will be sufficient funds that hopefully retained earnings never needs to be used, because there will be sufficient funds just coming in through regular revenue in that fiscal year 23 to cover the increased operational costs from capital. So it's a question of, you don't need to hit your savings account because your income already covered it. Is that?
I'm still confused, because so you're anticipating that there's a potential payment of this loan will come directly out of the general fund?
No, well, not the general fund, the water and sewer retained earnings fund, directly from fees paid, nothing to do with the general fund.
So can I jump in here a little bit? So Dave, the sewer rate's gonna go up. It's gonna go up $1.50. That should generate about $400,000 more money. That's not gonna get spent in fiscal 22. But next year, when the debt line comes in, that extra $400,000 will be used to pay the debt when we get it in that year. In fact, we'll probably have to go up another $1.50 to increase that to maybe $800,000 or $900,000 to cover the debt. So we'll never have to go. We're raising the rates to pay the bond. Right. So that raise in rates, that extra money that we'll get in the raise in rates, will actually pay the bond. That's the money we're going to use to pay the bond. There will be a whole year, and maybe even longer. I think it'll probably be fiscal 24. But there will be a whole year where the rate's gone up and there's no bond to pay. So that extra money is going to go into their retained earnings. And honestly, that's probably going to be almost or at least half of the 1.5 million. So they're going to use 1.5 million as a down payment on the bond when we do the bond. And the raise in rates are going to pay the bond year in and year out. We won't have to go into retained earnings to do it. Okay, I don't know if that's more.
But technically, the money does have to go from water retained earnings to
no.
The town is taking the loan.
No, it's retained earnings is free cash.
I know,
and
but
we haven't. We're increasing the revenue. We're increasing the revenue in the rates to pay for the bond. So right. Retained earnings is after the fact. So it is their earnings. It's not their retained earnings. It's their earnings that we're using to pay the bond.
Because I'm saying the town is taking the loan, so the town has to pay it back.
The enterprise is taking a loan, and the enterprise is going to pay it back.
The enterprise, the water and sewer is taking the loan on this?
Yes. It's going to be a water and sewer enterprise bond. And so the rates in the water and sewer enterprise get raised to pay for the bond.
All
So
right.
that's why the sewage rate's going up. And
I'm just talking about, and it's just a minor point, but if whoever takes the loan is paying off the loan. So,
Well, so we're all the same entity. There's only one entity, the town of Whitman.
all right.
So yes, correct. The bonds are being taken by the town of Whitman. But they will definitely be paid for by water sewer revenue.
Okay.
However, there's only one entity. It's, ultimately, I mean, the town is responsible for the payment of these loans. And just to clarify one point, the $1.5 million, by using that from retained earnings now, that means that amount will never be bonded. It will reduce the amount that we will ever have to borrow by that amount by using, it's the equivalent of you're buying a house and making a down payment of $1.5 million. Wouldn't that be nice, right? But making a down payment of $1.5 million on your house so that you only need to borrow 12.9 rather than 13.4.
And if I just might add too, that the fact that, the water commissioners are advocating for keeping money, additional money in the retained earnings too, because of the potential for some other catastrophic failure in the future. So much to your analogy, Lincoln, when you bought the house and you still have to have money set aside for, capital improvements that may need to be done. So that's why they're not advocating for using more than the 1.5 million. That's all I just wanted to add to that. All right, any other discussions regarding this Article 5? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion for a recommendation for Article 5.
Kathleen will move it.
Second,
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call. John Noon.
yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
John Galvin?
I abstain.
Dave?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, Article 6, police vehicle. To see if the town will vote to appropriate from free cash $60,000 to purchase and equip one police vehicle or take any other action relative thereto. And this is proposed by the police chief and the town administrator. I'll entertain a motion for Article 6.
Kathleen moves Article 6.
Second it.
Discussion. Okay, roll call vote. We'll start with John Noon,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
and Dave, did I get you? I don't see
No,
you.
I abstain.
You abstain, okay. And I vote yes. Okay, Article 7. Water pickup and meter radio reading equipment. To see if the town will vote to appropriate $29,000 from water sewer retained earnings to purchase and equip a medium-sized pickup truck and purchase and install water meter radio reading equipment in said truck or take any other action relative thereto. And it's proposed by the Public Works Commission. I'll entertain a motion on Article 7.
Kathleen moves Article 7.
Second,
I have a motion by Kathleen, second John Noon. Discussion. Okay, roll call vote. John Noon,
yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Okay, town park playground repair. See if the town will vote to appropriate $29,528 from free cash to replace broken and worn parts at the town park playground or take any other action relative thereto. And it's proposed by the Public Works Commission as well.
Kathleen moves Article 8.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Has this project, would this project qualify for the Community Preservations Act?
Believe it would. I think there's an open question about the repair of the playground rather than building new. But the reason it's on there now is because of as identified by Superintendent Martin, that he wanted to get it fixed and not wait a year, because we won't have any revenue, right, from the CPC. Well, there is no revenue right now yet. There won't be until fiscal year 2022. And further, we, as you know, in the warrant, there's a article to set up the committee. So this is on here now rather than exploring the possibility of using Community Preservation Act monies in the future, because Superintendent Martin believed it was necessary to fix it earlier.
Okay, thank you, Lincoln and Dave, for the question.
Comment from Chuck.
Go ahead, Chuck.
I fully support it. I go down that area frequently, and I know it's missing a lot of stuff, and I know a lot of the townsfolk, they're down there all the time using it. So I think we should fix it as soon as we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll take a roll call. John Noon,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Did I get you, Kathleen? Yes.
Yes, you did.
Okay, sorry. And I vote yes. Okay. Moving on to the next Article 9, four-wheel drive one-ton truck. See if the town will vote to appropriate $12,500 from the High Street Cemetery Receipts Reserved Account, $12,500 from the Mount Zion Cemetery Receipts Reserved Account, and $39,000 from free cash to purchase and equip with plow a four-wheel drive one-ton truck or take any other action relative thereto, proposed by the Public Works Commission.
So moved.
We have
Second.
a motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, we'll take a vote. John Noon,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Okay, moving on to Article 10, large dump truck. See if the town will vote to appropriate $156,286 from free cash to purchase and equip a 39,000-pound gross vehicle weight dump truck with snowplow or take any other action relative thereto, proposed by the Public Works Commission.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I have a question, and I don't know if we can get an answer, but with the purchase of these two trucks, Article 9 and Article 10, and with the trucks that we purchased last year, have we done a pretty good job in replacing the fleet? Or is there still some trucks that, I mean, I think we bought three or four trucks last year too. So I'm hoping we're like really close to getting the fleet in order.
I mean, there's almost certainly going to be a large dump truck on the warrant, if not every year, almost every year. We do have, the town did purchase large dump trucks like this many years ago with outstanding, this was many years ago, not with
1999.
Thank you, 1999, with a whole fleet with outstanding Chapter 90 monies that hadn't been spent for a while. That's ancient history, but nevertheless, we still are using some of those trucks, and they will undoubtedly be completely out of service at some point. So I mean, I could certainly predict that if not every year, almost every year, there'll be at least a few trucks on the warrant.
Okay,
I'm
thank you,
for it.
John.
I was just hoping
Yeah.
we got them better equipment, but we still have a ways to go, it sounds like.
Yeah, we're working on it. And I think it's part of just the ongoing attention to the need rather than buying. I'm not sure how many there were purchased back then. I think it was about 7 that were purchased back then in 1999. But rather than having these big dips and valleys, doing it on a regular basis. Yeah.
I think we're starting to see some progress on the deferred maintenance of the Public Works Department. So, yeah, it's a good, we're moving in the right direction, I think. Thank you, John and Lincoln. Anybody else questions, comments? Okay. Did we have a motion on this?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, roll call. John Noon,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Okay, so Article 11, truck lift system. See if the town will vote to appropriate $46,000 from free cash to purchase an 18,000 pound stereo com or comparable column truck lift system or take any other action relative thereto, proposed by the Public Works Commission.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions? Comments? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. John Noon,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Okay, the next article, Article 12, street resurfacing. See if the town will vote to appropriate $100,000 from free cash for the purpose of resurfacing and or installing surface treatments, engineering services, granite purchases, and line painting various town streets, or take any other action relative thereto, proposed by the Public Works Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Again, I think this is something that the DPW has recognized, that the woefully inadequate amount of money that we're getting from Chapter 90 needs to be supplemented. So I'm glad to see that we're moving in that direction as well. Anybody comments, questions on Article 12?
I have a question for Lincoln,
Go
hopefully.
ahead, Kathleen?
And you may not be able to answer this, Lincoln, but I know several people in town have asked me if there is a schedule of roads being repaired. And these are people who live on side streets whose roads are in dire need of repair. So does the DPW have a plan? It might be a 20-year plan, but a plan nonetheless.
There is a priority list. So as far as, which roads will be, in which order the roads will be repaired. As far as when that order will be taken is dependent on how much, if, for example, this article, right, is approved in a particular fiscal year or not.
Okay.
If that helps to make sense, but there is a priority list. Yes.
Is that a public document?
I will ask it from Superintendent Martin.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
John Noon.
I think when we heard from the DPW before, there was a real reluctance to basically identify what streets would be covered by an article like this, only because it starts the wars on whose street looks worse.
Right. And perfectly honest with you, $100,000 doesn't go very far with respect to resurfacing roads, so depending on the condition. Good point, John. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, John Noon,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Okay, the next article is sidewalk repair, Article 13. See if the town will vote to appropriate $50,000 from free cash for the purpose of repairing, replacing, or installing sidewalks on various town streets, or take any other action relative thereto. And then also proposed by the Public Works Commission.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Same question. Sorry.
Kathleen,
Okay.
same question to
Same question,
Lincoln.
Lincoln. Is there a schedule of sidewalks to be repaired?
I am not 100%. I will find out if that exists. I'm not sure if it does for sidewalks.
Okay, thank
And-
you.
My comment was just, this is the first time we've seen a sidewalk repair article. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to see some money set aside for that. Yeah, I was just curious too on how they will determine where that goes to.
Yeah.
But I know people will like to see that.
Yep, no doubt about it. There's a lot of them that need it. All
Yeah.
right, so we'll go to roll call vote on this article. John Noon,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Okay, moving to Article 14, the Armory Building roof. See if the town will vote to appropriate $35,000 from free cash to repair the Armory Building roof or take any other action relative thereto. And this is proposed by the fire chief. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Okay, yeah, we've seen this before. We've seen this article, we've seen this proposal quite a few times in the history of our capital matrix. Is there any other discussion, John Noon?
Just a question in general. Who ultimately owns the building? Will the town continue to use the building? And is it true that there's no facilities, toilet facilities or water going into that building at this point?
Lincoln.
I'm not sure about the utilities. I'll find out the answer for you in that. The town owns the building outright. And as far as, I'm sorry, what was your second question?
Well, the reason I raised the question about how.
Oh, what the plan is.
Utilize the building is
Yep.
because, and I don't recall how it was resolved. The American Legion, I think, was claiming the building if the town didn't utilize it at one point. And I can't recall how that was resolved.
So the town definitely owns the building outright. And as far as the future utilization, that's something that I want to pursue once we get past town meeting of, in general, an analysis of space usage, not just at the Armory, but also in particular in all town buildings, if we can afford such a study, of the scope of which, all town buildings that the town owns, but certainly I think a focus on the Armory building and Town Hall. We have a pretty significant amount of unused space in the rear of Town Hall. So that is something, that I'd like to pursue, is a space analysis of what we have and how we could use it in a creative way.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, further discussion? Okay, roll call vote on Article 14, John Noon,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Okay, Article 15, replace fire department vehicle. See if the town will vote to appropriate $60,000 from free cash to purchase a replacement of a 2015 fire department vehicle or take any other action relative thereto, and that is proposed by the fire chief.
So moved.
Second.
Question, Rick?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Yes, go ahead, Al.
It's a 2015 vehicle. Were they retiring it, or what are they doing with it? Is it for high mileage in Whitman?
Yeah, so the plan at the moment would be that the old vehicle go to the building inspector, who has a vehicle that is in very rough shape. I'm not sure of the year of that vehicle, but it is significantly older than 2015, and we've been spending a pretty significant amount of money making necessary repairs so that it stays on the road. So that would be the plan for the old vehicle.
What would what vehicle? Who would be getting this new vehicle for $60,000?
The fire chief.
And what's going to happen with his vehicle? That's obviously 2015.
So
Yeah.
that vehicle, the 2015 vehicle, would
Yeah.
be the one that would be repurposed for the building department.
Okay. Is there a vehicle parked in the armory now that's not being used?
There is not.
Okay.
Okay, further question?
Mr. Chairman, if I can jump in real quick,
Go ahead.
the building inspector's vehicle is a 2006.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
And
That's
I
going
believe
back a
that
few
was
years.
I believe that was a fire department vehicle too that he got handed down to him.
It was.
Okay. Thank you, Justin. Further questions? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call.
I have one comment, Rick.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
You also have to remember, Al, is that it's not just mileage within Whitman. Fire chief takes that on official business outside of Whitman, and also, he has it all week long. So if he's taking trips down to the Cape, he's taking that vehicle. So it probably has higher mileage than you think.
Fair enough.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Anybody else? Okay, moving on to roll call then. Chuck,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
John Noon,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Okay, Article 16, Fire Department phone mitigation. See if the town, needs another word in there, will vote to appropriate $10,000 from free cash to remove and replace the fire department's firefighting foam or take any other action relative thereto, proposed by the fire chief.
So
Move.
moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Discussion on the Article 16. Okay, seeing none, we will move to roll call. Kathleen,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
John Noon,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Dave.
You already got me.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, pictures are moving around, and I vote yes. Okay, thank you. Article 17, Duval Conley and Whitman Middle School phone systems. To see if the town votes transfer $71,208 from Article 15 of the December 11th, 2017 special town meeting, Duval School roof, to replace the telephone system at the Duval Conley and Whitman Middle Schools, or take any other action relative thereto proposed by the school committee.
Second.
Motion.
Move.
John Noon makes a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Ralph, thank you. Okay, questions, comments, discussion?
I have a question on this, and it relates not just to this article, but as I see others coming up, that we're taking an awful lot of money from the Duval roof, school roof that was appropriated in December of 2017. I know that the clawback time, if that's what it's called, has been pushed back even further to fix the Duval roof. Are we depleting the entire money we have set aside to deal with the emergency roof repairs at Duval?
No. And I am gonna tell you just one moment. I'll tell you what would be remaining after this, just a moment.
I believe it was a sum of almost $700,000 over a couple of years.
Yeah, it was originally, just one moment, I'm sorry.
And
So the Duval roof, so currently there is $541,858.50 in that article. And the amount of monies that would be coming out of this, out of the various school items now is, I believe, around $279,000. I give an exact cost here in one moment. So that there would still be upwards of, there would be still remaining several $100,000 in that article to make temporary repairs of the Duval roof.
And can you say, just as a follow-up, why they have redetermined the need for less money for that?
Yeah, so as Ms. Otina mentioned, in 2017 town meeting appropriated monies to make a fix. There's been, and certainly the school's facilities folks could give a more in-depth analysis of what exactly is needed now after various investigations. But that said, I know the school committee's facilities subcommittee has determined that an immediate fix is not necessary for the safety of the children, and that a longer term, that patching is sufficient until a longer term, more expensive resolution can be identified. The Massachusetts School Building Authority has an accelerated roof repair program. However, the clawback period that Ms. Otina referenced is that originally it is now until 2030 or 2031, whereby because of the original, for the length of time that is now necessary, according to the Mass School Building Authority, in new determinations from them, until that is the earliest point at which they would participate in making a long-term full fix of the roof. So the schools have determined that they want to wait until we know we have some sort of assurance that the Mass School Building Authority would participate, and that we, the town, on the school's behalf, wouldn't be on the hook for the entire amount of a large scale full roof replacement, or large scale, whether it's almost certainly a replacement, right? So in the interim, that $541,000 now would be used to make periodic repairs. There's no instance in the last few years where more than a few $1,000s were spent. So I think, in my estimation, several $100,000 left there will be more than enough to make those intermediate repairs while we await the School Building Authority to participate in a longer term fix in hopefully 2030 or fiscal year 2031. So.
Okay, does that answer your question?
It does, but I wanted to express my concern because I believe that the original appropriation in 2017 was a reflection of the devastating impact of the winter of 2015, where I think we had about 100 feet of snow, maybe not quite 100, but a lot of snow, and the Duval roof took a beating. And if such an incident happens again, I think the town needs to be aware, or the town leaders need to be aware, that they may have to be reappropriating significant sums to replace this Duval roof before 2030, 2031.
Yeah, and if I may comment,
Go ahead, Chuck.
because I sat on the committee back then, and a good point there, Kathy. I mean, that was a lot of money that we appropriated, quite a
Yep.
bit. And I was a little surprised to find out that the work actually never got done. Two things bugged me. The roof, the school had been redone not too long ago. So it was very frustrating to see that we were going to have to invest $700,000 to fix a building that was just recently done over. Bad project manager, I don't know. But then where we allocated all that money, it took money from other places. Like I said, I think it was around $700,000. And geez, the job all of a sudden didn't get done. Either we should have done it or it didn't need it. That's a lot of money to be sitting around. Yeah, we get that kind of weather. It might have to happen again, but we brought up before about some of these big projects when the money gets allocated that we get some kind of update format, projects finished, closed. I think we brought this up at other finance committees in years past. And this just stands out to me like that was a big appropriation where here we are and we got a ton of money all this time. And so I just kind of like to track the money better. And did we really need to set it aside? It probably does need it. Would it have been a waste of money if we fixed the whole roof? Who knows? The weather hasn't been that bad. I don't know. I just feel the whole process was not very smooth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. So as this is one of the first proposals for capitals from the school committee, Lincoln, you and I had a conversation a couple weeks back about the utilization of SR2 funds for non-reoccurring expenses with the district. Do you know if the use of those funds has been explored for capital projects or discussed or in any way?
Not to my knowledge in depth with the entire school committee. There's certainly been, I think, the members of this committee are aware of this, that ESSER monies were identified to as for ongoing expenses, or I guess you could consider them to be ongoing expenses in the school budget, and thus reducing the assessment to the communities. I know there was, I believe the current plan on behalf of the schools is to spend some of their ESSER monies towards remediation as a result of COVID. So I guess, it's an open question about whether or not that would be considered to be an ongoing expense or a one-time expense. I guess time will tell, right? But there has not been any adjustment in the request from the schools for capital items as a result of ESSER.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, further discussion on Article 17. Okay, seeing none, we'll move to a roll call. John Noon,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. Okay, moving on to the Article 18, which is the high school phone system. See if the town votes transfer $133,404, which is 60% of the total cost of $222,340 from Article 15 of the December 11th, 2017 special town meeting, Duval School roof, to pay Whitman's share of the cost to replace the telephone system at the high school, or take any other action relative thereto proposed by the school committee.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on Article 18. Seeing none, we will move to a vote. John Noon,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Dave.
Yes.
I vote yes. Okay, the Article 19, high school existing fire lane. See if the town votes to transfer $34,500 from Article 15 of the December 11th, 2017 special town meeting to pay Whitman's share of the cost to repair the existing fire lane around the high school, or take any other action relative thereto proposed by the school committee.
So moved.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second. Discussion on Article 19. Okay, seeing none. John Noon, go ahead.
I will vote in favor of this article because the work obviously needs to be done. But it kind of bugs me a little bit that the existing fire lane needs to be repaired because it's not being used as a fire lane. They're sending more traffic down that area of road, and that's has resulted in the road basically starting to crumble. Again, I'll support it, but if you designate in the design of the school that certain parts of it are going to be used for certain purposes, and then you change it to make it a multi-purpose situation, it's a little troubling that you don't plan these things out well enough. Having said that, I will vote to approve the stretch that needs to be retired, but it's a little bit frustrating.
Excellent point, John. Yep, very good. Anybody else? Comments on Article 19? At the very least, they should rename it, right? Because that is the same roadway that the kindergartens are dropped off, right? Is that correct?
Preschool.
Preschool, yeah. Good. Thank you. Okay. So John, your vote was yes.
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. Okay, we're halfway there. Article 20, Duval and Conley School Emergency Generator to see if the town will vote to transfer $40,000 from Article 15 of the December 11th, 2017 special town meeting for additional funding needed to complete the emergency generator project and transfer switch or take any other action relative thereto, proposed by the school committee.
I move
So-
it.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none. John Noon,
yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Chuck.
Chuck
Sorry,
votes
Chuck.
yes. Sorry. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Article 21, codified general bylaws.
I don't,
Steve-
I'm wondering if we need to review any other ones. But,
Okay, so codifying
bylaws.
general bylaws definitely wouldn't fall. Municipal fines.
Community
Established
preservation.
Community Preservation Committee, no. Cable
Okay,
access funds, I think
that
we
one.
typically do vote this line.
Yes.
So Article 25, cable access funds. See if the town will vote to appropriate $278,276 from the Reserve for Appropriation Cable Access Account to fund the PEG access services in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53F and 3/4, or take any other action relative thereto. And this is proposed by the town administrator.
So moved.
Second.
So, okay, discussion. This is something that started last year, so I think the board is familiar with the process. So we'll have roll call vote. John Noon,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Al.
Yes.
Did I miss anybody?
Nope.
I vote yes. Okay,
This one.
so Article 26 definitely needs a recommendation from the Finance Committee. So this is the debt authorization for the South Shore Regional Vocational School District. To see if the town will vote to authorize the South Shore Regional Vocational School District to incur debt in the amount of $10,516,372 under the authority of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 71, Section 16D, or any other enabling authority for the purpose of remodeling and making extraordinary repairs to the school building, which will extend the useful life of the school and support the required education program under the following terms or take any other action relative thereto. So the school district will use any and all monies borrowed to make extraordinary repairs and permanent improvements to its school building, and where necessary, remodel and expand its building footprint. Priority project determination will include, but are not limited to, recommendations from its 2018 facility master plan as provided to the town, and 2, the terms of any agreement to incur debt or borrow monies under this article shall be approved by the school committee, and any sums borrowed pursuant to this article will be expended under the direction of the school committee. And 3, the monies received pursuant to this article shall be kept separate and apart from other school funds and may be expended by the school committee without further appropriation, provided, however, that any balance remaining in such account at the close of a fiscal year shall remain in said account and may be expended for the upkeep and maintenance of any facility under the control of the school committee. And this is proposed by the South Shore Regional Vocational School District School Committee.
I move the article.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Kathleen?
I just want to say that Superintendent Hickey does an amazing job of providing us with the information we need to make an informed decision on this. I support it 100%.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Further discussion? Go
I do, David.
ahead, Dave.
So this is an additional appropriation on top of the monies that we already appropriate within Article 2 currently. With this additional $10 million debt, how much will that increase our appropriation yearly on a yearly basis? Well, this year or on average, without any increases to social vote text Article 2 line item?
Lincoln?
So that's an excellent question. And the answer precisely would be up to the South Shore Regional School Committee, because it would depend on how much debt they take out when and on what terms on the open market. So that said, had some discussion with Superintendent Hickey about this. That said, a pretty significant portion of our current assessment that we pay is due to capital projects. So sort of pay as you go capital projects rather than bonding, rather than, rather than debt. So according to Superintendent Hickey, their plan is to reduce that pay as you go capital part of the assessment on our regular assessment. And instead, the assessment will go up by the amount that they go out and borrow on. They're estimating, and I want to be clear, these are their estimates, not mine, because ultimately these questions about how much, if this is passed by all 8 towns, the questions about how much would be borrowed and when is up to the school committee, not me. So I want to be clear, these are their estimates, but that currently, in fiscal 22, the portion of our assessment, according to him, that would be part of the capital, not part of the new borrowing, would be 221,000. Excuse me, this is district wide. So
No, that's right.
Whitman's right there.
Yeah, do you see the charts? Are you guys seeing the chart that's here?
Yeah.
All right, so
Right here.
Whitman right
there you
now,
go. Thank you.
in our current assessment, we're paying 221,550 in capital. That'll go away next year. And it will be substituted with, again, minimum borrowing, because they're banning it. They're not going to bond it until the work is done. So in fiscal 24, I think they're saying it'll go back up, but it'll be less than what we're paying this year.
Yep.
So over the next 3 years, we're actually going to be paying less money, and actually throughout the entire bond at this $10 million. The problem is that in a couple of years, they're coming back.
Yep.
And they're coming back to get the rest of the 18 million that they wanted originally. So when they do that, that's when we'll end up going ahead and having to spend money. So I think right now what they're doing saves us money, significant money in the next couple of years, but in fiscal 25, I think it is, it's still going to be less than what we're paying now. The other question that I will have for Mr. Hickey on the town floor will be, yeah, they're removing this capital stuff now, but who's to stop them from reinserting other capital requests that, for things that aren't part of their capital plan? But, that's to say. So theoretically, this is moving into debt instead of capital. So it won't show up in our assessment as capital. It'll show up as debt. If you go back to their original 24-page proposal when he came in the first time, he's actually got the capital broken out very well.
Yep.
I agree. Mr. Hickey's amazing in his, how he presents things. So I am 100% for this 10 million because it'll save us money. But when phase 2 hits in 4 years, I question whether or not I will support phase 2, because that'll end up costing us way more. And it'll also be about the same time that we're looking to fund our own middle school. So,
Okay, thank you, John, and Lincoln for the explanation. Any further questions? Okay, we go back to the warrants. Did we have a motion in a second?
Yep.
Okay. Roll call vote, Kathleen,
Yes.
John Galvin,
yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, so Article 27 is definitely a very long article and nothing that we need to make a recommendation on. So you want to scroll down to, I don't know,
Forever.
quite a ways. Lucky I'm not reading that one. Okay, Article 29 is the library. Oh, I'm
28.
sorry,
28.
Actually,
28, yeah, we'll start with collective bargaining for the fire. To see if the town will vote to approve a collective bargaining agreement between the town and Local 1769 International Association of Firefighters, AFL-CIO, for the period commencing July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, with the cost items funded in part through monies appropriated as part of the fiscal year 2022 operating budget, Article 2, and to appropriate $37,000 from free cash to fund the remaining cost items or take any other action relative thereto. And this is proposed by the Board of Selectmen. Do you have a
Make a
motion?
motion.
Do you have a
Second.
second? All right. Discussion.
I have a question that covers actually all 5 of the articles. Are any of these still being bargained, or have the agreements been made with, I'm assuming fire has been, because you have numbers in there, but library, police, public works, town hall, are they still being bargained, or are you in agreement?
All of them are actually still being bargained.
Okay.
There was, to get deep into it, I'm happy to do this if the committee wants to. I want to, since it's subject to collective bargaining, I want to discuss it in an executive session, but the short answer is that all of them are still being bargained.
So should we pass on or table these articles until,
Yeah.
will there be, will a town meeting come and go before you're done bargaining?
It's possible, in which case, the intention would be to bring the cost items for approval at a future town meeting. I don't know if any will be finalized or not prior to town meeting at this moment.
So typically our recommendation on these articles, if they haven't been ratified, is that that the finance committee will make its recommendation on town hall floor. That way, if there is a ratified contract, then we can vote it at town meeting, but it seems unlikely that that will be the case, so I agree with you, John, that we probably shouldn't take action on any of these that aren't ratified. So does anybody else have an opinion? We can't really recommend something that has not been finalized.
Right.
It's like recommending something without a dollar figure. Okay, John Noon.
But is Article 28 finalized?
Lincoln just said that they weren't done negotiating. So there could be modifications to Article 28.
Okay,
Is that correct, Lincoln?
That's correct. Yes, it is still being bargained.
Okay.
okay.
I'll rescind my motion on Article
All right.
20.
Okay, and the second is also rescinded, I would assume.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to 31, 32, 33, Capital Committee, nothing there. 34, residency requirement, speakers at town meeting, plastic bag ban, nope, nope, and nope. Polystyrene, nope. And 39, transfer to capital stabilization. I would suggest that this is something that the committee should make a recommendation.
What about
All right.
38 too?
38 also, yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. Article 38, to combine the capital stabilization funding sources. See if the town will vote to rescind its adoption of the technology and regional school stabilization funds and add the balance of these funds to the capital stabilization fund or take any other action relative thereto. And this is proposed by the town administrator and the town accountant. Motion.
so moved.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Questions on Article 38?
Just what
I
does it
think-
do? What's the?
Sure.
Good
So-
question.
So I would consider this a housekeeping item. So right now we have a town capital stabilization fund. And we additionally have these other two, what are effectively also capital stabilization funds. And in the interest, there are very limited funds. There is $866.77 in the technology stabilization fund and $6,541.85 in the regional school stabilization fund. What they are effectively capital stabilization funds. And in the interest of simplicity in the town's accounting system, I'm suggesting that the entirety of those relatively small balances be transferred to our one capital stabilization fund. So we have all of our capital stabilization funds are in one place.
Okay, does that answer your question?
It's perfect.
Okay,
Yes,
Thank you
makes a
very
lot
much.
more sense.
What was
okay,
that, Ralph?
I was saying it makes a lot more sense. It'll be easier to keep track of.
right, okay. All right, thank you. So we will now move to roll call. John Newman.
Yeah.
Kathleen,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, Article 39, transfer to capital stabilization fund. See if the town will vote to appropriate $100,000 from free cash to be added to the capital stabilization fund or take any other action relative thereto. Proposed by the town administrator.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Question.
Discussion.
Question,
Go ahead, John.
Lincoln, when all of the expenditures from free cash are appropriated, and assuming they are all appropriated at town meeting, how much will be left in free cash after town meeting?
Just one moment. I had that calculation, but I forgot to recalculate it after last week's slight budget changes. So give me a moment and I'll have it for you.
Okay, well, Lincoln is doing that. We just table the vote and we could move on. Do you think it'll take a few minutes, Lincoln? Yeah.
Maybe
We'll give
3
it 2
minutes. Two minutes. I just want to make sure I have it right.
Okay, all right. So just dropping down, this is something new, Article 40. I know we have a motion on the table, but while we have a few minutes, the cell tower lease. So this was something that was brought up at the selectmen's meeting, and I did have a conversation with Lincoln about this today. And although there is an economic implication to this warrant article, if in fact the town entered into a lease agreement for the cell tower on parcel 872-1A. It's just this particular location, I know where it is. It is actually at the end of Commercial Street. I did, just have some concerns. And again, I'm taking my Finance Committee member hat off for just a moment to talk about open space and the implications of a cell tower in that particular area. And if you're not familiar with it, the abutter is Bear Meadow. So it's it's obviously I would say an environment that needs protection. And I'm just a little concerned about not only the amount of time that we have to consider, but the information that was provided to the Board of Selectmen really wasn't all that in depth. And Lincoln explained to me, as I'm sure he will explain when we get to this article, that this is very preliminary, and this is something that has been on a back burner, I guess, in the Selectman's office, town administrator's corner for quite some time. And so it was an opportunity for him to get it before the voters, and the only way to do that obviously is to put it on the warrant. So I just wanted to ask the committee to do a little bit of research and take a look at where this is proposed to be going, this particular cell tower. And again, there's obviously going to be a recommendation because of the financial implication, but I just wanted to throw it out there about the location and its impact on the wetlands associated with Bear Meadow. So,
Hey, Rick, where was that located? I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you. Where was that?
It's at the end of Commercial Street. That parcel of land is where the pump station is at the end of Commercial Street as it turns to go up to South Ave. So, but if you look at an overall view of that particular parcel, you'll see that that particular parcel abuts Bear Meadow in the,
We don't
the
know how tall,
watershed area.
we don't know how tall it is. Is it like the ones on 128 with they're 3,000 feet tall, or the a couple of 100 feet tall?
There's nothing here to tell us that at all, right, Lincoln? You don't really have any.
Oh, so
information?
just to give a little more context, so this is something that just came to my attention week and a half ago. And so it had been, dealt with, or there had been some discussions, I think, with the interim town administrator on it. What it is, so there was interest expressed by the cell tower operator to lease this land for the possibility of a cell tower. And so, to be clear, so brought it to the Board of Selectmen to get their input on whether or not this should even be considered. But this comes back to the same issue we spoke about earlier with the postage machine, in that the cell tower leases are typically much more than 3 years. And so, so technically, right, the town could go and do a lease for 3 years or less. But since these are typically more, this is the step to go to town meeting to determine whether or not the town wants to even allow for the possibility of having it in this place. I want to be clear, I'm not, strongly advocating for this, nor, I would think with the Board of Selectmen be strongly advocating for this, but it would be a revenue opportunity. It would be something to consider. Certainly before there would be an RFP or an invitation for bid to go out if this authorization was given by town meeting. And that would certainly get some public input. I'd certainly go to the Board of Selectmen to get approval for any RFP or IFP. And certainly there'd be further opportunities for public input about whether or not we even want one, whether or not the town even wants to consider having a cell tower there. But even to get to that point, even to have that conversation, the authorization would need to come from town meeting. There's a existing water, I'm not sure if it's a water or a sewer pump station, but there's an existing pump station there. And this would be right next to that on a small parcel of land there. There's a larger parcel of town-owned land that would not be under consideration here for the cell tower. There's a small piece of land right at the end of Commercial Place. So that's the context for the article, but happy to take any further questions about it.
Okay, and I apologize for jumping ahead. So we just back up to Article 39 so we can, because we do have a motion and a second on the floor for recommendation of the transfer to capital stabilization. Did you get the total?
I'm sorry, I was almost done and then I was answering that question. Just give me one more minute if you would, please.
Okay, yes, no worries.
Rick, can we go back to the discussion on the cell tower lease?
Sure, yes.
So I'm fairly familiar with the process of permitting cell phone towers. But I'm shocked. I'd just like to say I'm shocked, and I'd like to call out every single Board of Selectmen because this is the problem that we've had in the past, and now this is a problem that they're trying to perpetuate going forward. They bring something at the 11th hour to shove down without proper vetting and give it to the townspeople to try to get it passed real quick because it's a pet project of theirs. The town administrator has said he's only had this on his desk for a week and a half, even though the prior town administrator and that the administration during that time had this in discussion. So why there is such a rush to judgment and a rush to vote to get this done is I have no idea why, but I can only speculate. And I'm typically right in my speculations. So to the Board of Selectmen, you guys are, I find it abhorrent that you continue to put together projects without the proper vetting and try to rush things through town meeting. So I would recommend everyone on this board to vote against this particular article.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Go ahead, Lincoln.
If I could, I just want to be clear. This came from me, not a member of the Board of Selectmen. So I just want to be clear on that. And it came from me just because town meeting was coming up and there was a possibility of there not being, a further town meeting for a year, possibly. And so I want to be sure that, I'm not advocating for it per se. I just want to make sure that when this entity, when this company that was interested in the possibility of this comes back to me, I can say, well, we started the process, or well, you have to wait a whole other year. So I just want to be clear. I'm the one who brought it to the Board of Selectmen. It wasn't at the prompting of any member of the Board of Selectmen. And the only reason I did that was because, there had been this outstanding interest, and I didn't necessarily want this interest, after it had been going on a little while, to wait an entire other year. But again, I'm not saying we need to do this. I'm saying, let's see, even if we want to start this process. And if the answer is we don't want to even consider this, it's fine with me. I just want to move it along to the point where I'm not telling, a possible revenue source for the town, never mind, you got to wait another year. I know you've already been waiting a little while. So I just want to be clear on how it got on the warrant, if I could.
Okay, I'd like to redirect my comments directly to you, Lincoln.
Sure.
So all those comments are directed to you. This is the wrong approach. The approach is not to see if the town will execute a lease. The approach should be to see if the town is interested in hiring an expert on their behalf to see if it's a good idea or not a good idea to put a cell phone tower there. Because what's a cell phone tower? People are going to say, yeah, this is perfect. No problem. So I think the approach is completely wrong on this. I think what you should do is you should request a sum of money to hire a consultant on your behalf, on the town's behalf, to do some preliminary work on that, and then find that preliminary work is positive. Then take it to town meeting and say, look, town, this is the preliminary information that we've got from our expert. They're saying it's positive. It will, it's likely, who knows what the funding, how much revenue it's going to bring in, because everybody knows cell phone companies are not going away. There'll be a line out the door. There'll be 100 deep trying, if that's a viable option, and the town believes the viable option, there's going to be 100 cell phone companies begging to do the work.
Yep. No,
Okay.
Point well taken. Point well taken, Mr. Cordero. I mean,
Okay, and then if I could just follow up too, Dave, in fairness to the Board of Selectmen, I think perhaps maybe the board should be provided with a little bit more information than it was provided when they made their recommendations to support this article. I mean, if you recall, Lincoln, there really wasn't, an awful lot of information that they were given when they were asked to support, this article on the warrant. So, at this time, we could even, when we get to Article 40, we could table the discussion on it until we could have maybe a follow-up with the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, and I certainly think that Mr. Cordero's point about having an assessment of other sites in town. Frankly, I was approached by someone who does this work, so obviously there was an interest in this particular spot, and it must be viable, I assume, or otherwise they wouldn't have come and asked about this particular spot, right? But that said, an analysis of possibly other places in town and coming, full circle, going out and doing a study to determine, the various sites. Point well taken, and I think that's a great idea, and I can pursue that, provided there's some funding to do so.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you, Dave, for your comments. So let's get back to Article 39, and let's, do we have the final number on that
Yes,
again?
so the remaining free cash that would be remaining after its use in the budget and the various articles at town meeting would be $321,067.62.
Okay,
I'm sorry, 321 what?
Well, and including that $100,000
Right,
would be
correct.
$221,067.62.
Is that the grand total?
That's what's left.
That is what would be left after all of the articles at town meeting and its usage in Article 2.
Okay.
okay. All right, we have a motion and a second on Article 13. Further discussion? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. John Galvin,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Al.
Yeah.
John Noon,
Yes,
Kathleen,
Yes,
Chuck,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. I think you said Article 13, you meant Article 38, correct?
You meant
Yeah.
Article 39.
I meant Article 39. I'm
Excuse me,
sorry.
Article
did I say
39,
13?
thank you.
It's the hour, if people know what We
Uh,
are at the 2-hour mark, so I would suggest, once we finish the warrant, perhaps we will move to adjourn and carry on our discussion with Article 2 at our meeting next week. If that's the will of the board. So we'll move to Article 40, the cell tower lease. To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator to execute a lease terms of up to 12 years for a cellular tower located on town property identified in the Town of Whitman Assessors Map as parcel 872-1A, or take any other action relative thereto. And this is proposed by the Board of Selectmen.
Move to
move to
table.
table.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table.
I'll second.
Okay, we have 2 seconds to table, and we will take a roll call vote on the tabling. John Noon,
yes, to table.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Chuck,
Just a comment first. I think both of you guys were kind of trying to do the right things. I would love to explore, get some more information on what the revenue source, what it might bring, but definitely do a little bit more homework. So I will vote yes to table it and hopefully get more information.
okay, thank you, Chuck. Kathleen,
Yes,
Dave,
Yes.
Al?
Yes, definitely need more information, but yes, table it.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. Okay, so that concludes our recommendations on the warrant. Thank you all for your thoughtful comments, questions, and Lincoln for providing all the information that we need. Justin, thank you as well for being here for the discussion. So back to our agenda, just very quickly, I just want to make sure we don't leave anything undone. Under old business, we do have our subcommittee reports placeholder. Building Facilities Capital Expenditure Committee has made its recommendations. There is no meeting scheduled for the Regional Agreement Amendment Committee. The Middle School Building Committee,
We have a
John,
meeting.
anything to report?
Yeah, there's a
Article?
meeting next Monday, based on the discussions that we brought forth last week to, and maybe Lincoln has an update on that, on the forming a committee to make a recommendation to the building, the
School Building Authority?
MSBA, sorry, yes, the MSBA, Lincoln.
Yeah, so the purpose, I'm sorry, I can't recall if this full update came to this committee with the details of last week's school.
Yeah, we did last meeting, we updated.
But the sum total of it is that a request for proposals for an owner's project manager, the intention of the schools is to bring that to the school building committee, the middle school building committee meeting a week from tonight for its approval so that it can get out on the street.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any questions, Kathleen?
Just a comment, John and Lincoln, at that meeting, because I did attend it last Monday, and there were parents there who did think it was going to be an opportunity for questioning. When the middle school building committee meets, again, could they provide a night for parental questions? Because there definitely is an interest out there.
I would suggest that you bring that to Chairman Small of the committee to get it on the agenda.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. All right, so moving on to Whitman Hanson Regional School District Assessment and non-mandated busing. At our meeting last, Kathleen, if you were
Yeah, no.
volunteered to give
No-
some
no
information.
information. I have received no information.
Okay, thank you very much. Old business, anybody else under, anything under old business? I do have one item. I just want to follow up with town administrator about, have we received any guidance for the American Rescue Plan allocation to the town as far as expenditures?
We have not, but
Okay.
we should the US Treasury had 60 days to provide that, and that 60 days is coming to a conclusion. So I would certainly expect some very shortly.
Okay. All right, anything else from the committee? We don't have, Ken, Lincoln, anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. I apologize. There's a couple things I just wanted to follow up on that were questions that I was able to get answers on. So regarding the Hogue Memorial, the original Article 30 back from May of 2013 was $3,200,000. So that was the original appropriation. And then this additional $35,000 is to finish that project. Actually, that $3.2 million was for water mains throughout town. But this is sort of the last piece that the water and sewer department wants to complete relative to that 3.2 million. So hopefully that's helpful on that. To Ms. Sotina's questions about the original amount. So the original amount across two articles at annual town meeting in May of 2016 and special town meeting in December of 2017 was $635,000. Interestingly, the original article back from 16 says that $335,000 of that $635,000 is to fund the repair project for the roof of the Duval School roof. Such appropriation subject to favorable review for partial funding by the Massachusetts School Building Authority. So it was actually, sort of intended all along that back from beginning in 16 that we would have that participation. Since we don't have that participation, we know for at least another 8 to 9 years. That was sort of part of the thinking, that went into, let's put that money to good use now. So of that $635,000, again, there's $541,000 remaining, and recommended in the town, $541,858, and recommended in the town meeting warrant, it would be the use of $279,000 of that, which would leave remaining for interim repairs $262,746.50.
Thank you.
So I we never know what could happen, but I think based on past experience, that should be sufficient, over the next several years to make the interim repairs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Selectman Evans, is there anything that you would like to bring forward to the Finance Committee?
No, it's just a nice pleasure to be with you all. It brings me back to, 2016, 2017, 2018 job we were doing here before. So
Excellent. Well, we, as the liaison from the Board of Selectmen to the Finance Committee, we appreciate you being here and invite you to be at every meeting if you have the opportunity. So I'll send you the link on a regular basis if you don't mind.
maybe if they're a little shorter going forward.
Okay. I don't expect
This is
next
one of the
week to be-
longer ones.
Yeah, next week won't be that shorter either. So, all right. Anybody else? Anything? New business? Old business?
Nope.
Okay. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, roll call, John Noon,
Yes.
Kathleen,
yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes, good night.
Dave,
Yes. Good night.
Mr. Cafferty.
Yes, so, yes, yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, and I vote yes. All right, thank you all for your attendance and your input, and we look forward to seeing you all next week. Stay
Good night.
safe.
Good night, all.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night.
Night.